Welcome to Your New Chapter, the podcast for women navigating major life transitions who are ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and stuck and start creating the lives they desire from the inside out. Hi friends, this week I am not alone. I've invited a special guest to the show. Finances is one of the holistic pillars that I believe is very important for us as women. And so our special guest, Linda Grizley, is here today to help us think about our own metacognition when it comes to money as we navigate whatever type of transition we're going through and embark on our own journeys of reinvention. Welcome to the show, Linda. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation and hopefully we'll bring lots of good information to your listeners.
Yes, I'm so excited to speak with you today because part of rebuilding holistically is looking at finances. Finances is one of those holistic pillars, which a lot of times we get by, but we're not always so sure about. And so what I would like to do is start by jumping right into your story, finding out how you came to be where you are with money. Take us back to the moment where your relationship with money had to change and what was happening in your life. What shifted for you?
I've lived many different financial lives, so there wasn't one true pivotal moment where I realized my money situation had to change. I've lived like so many different money stories, and I think that's the key in me connecting with people with money because I was a single teenage mom. I was a married mom of 3 living in the suburbs. Then we had money and I had money and I was able to spend money without worry. And then I got divorced and I had to start over again. So I had all these different versions of me with money, and now I'm in a blended marriage, which is a whole nother version of money. Right. So there's all these different things that I've lived with money that help me connect with people on it. But I think I didn't get into financial services until later in life. And once I started to learn about the strategies of money and the tactics and how you do a plan and how money works and how to invest and all those great things about money, and I started working with clients and seeing other advisors work with their clients, is when I started to realize there was this whole other side to money where people had these beliefs that they had in their head about what they should do. There's lots of shoulds out there, or just ways they were holding themselves back that they couldn't see, like those internal obstacles that they're just blind to. And so this had me start thinking about what stories was I telling myself, because I see all these other people doing it and I'm like, wow, this is really a powerful thing. And I started, introspection, like thinking about what are my early money stories? How did I develop my relationship with money? And I realized I had been living in scarcity my whole life because I grew up in scarcity. Meaning that when I was a kid, I could do chores to make money. I didn't have an allowance, but it was kind of like, if you want to do something, let us know and you can make money, right? So in that sense, that gave me my entrepreneurial spirit. But I also saw my parents living paycheck to paycheck. And I didn't always have money because I didn't have an allowance. I didn't have anything like that. And I was told no a lot because we were living paycheck to paycheck. So I didn't have an abundance of money. Um, and then I saw other people, as I thought about this, other people who grew up with money and just money was just always there. And so they had this mindset of abundance with money, but sometimes it actually hurt them because they were just like, well, money's always going to be there. And they weren't working hard to improve themselves or make themselves better because they just expected it always to be there. But sometimes it worked out. Sometimes it was like, I have this mindset of abundance and it just comes to me. So it was like this whole, like, I'm not a psychologist, and I feel like I should go back and get a psychology degree because I'm so interested in all of this. And so I just did a deep dive in, and a lot of what I do is just based on money personalities and who you are and how you interact with money. I don't go back and do therapy or talk about I do sometimes ask questions about that, but it's really just what is your personality, how do you interact with it, and how can we build whatever you need to do with your finances around how you naturally interact with money.
Thank you, Linda. I'm thinking about something you said here about viewing money from a scarcity viewpoint. How does viewing money this way affect how people live their lives if you're thinking about it from that scarcity position?
A lot of different ways. So one way is like I was always in survival mode. So I was always thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. I'm not going to have enough. I need to save more. I need to do this. I need to do that. Like, so I was constantly in this state of, um, like worry, right? Anxiety over money, thinking that I was never going to have enough. I wanted more. I wanted to build a better life. I wanted to have the nice house. I wanted to have the nice things. I wanted to build a good life for my kids. But because I was so worried about it all the time, you think about like the energy that you have when you walk in a room if you're worried about something. Your kids sense it, your spouse senses it, your friends sense it. They're like, wow, what are you worried about? What's going on? Well, if you constantly feel that way, that's like the energy that you're emitting all the time. So figuring out a way to, feel content and really regulate your emotions around money is part of it. And I still find myself getting caught up. Like that's my money story I tell myself. So I still, even now I know all kinds of things about money, I still feel myself getting into that scarcity mode and starting to think like, oh my gosh, like I'm behind. I'm not gonna have enough. And then I flip it back and I'm like, no, you're doing all the right things. Like it's gonna be okay. um, yeah, so that's just a big part of it.
Mm. I'm thinking about when you say the energy that you bring with you, because I've heard people talk about, money is neutral and, the energy that you bring determines a lot of things to do with your money. So that's interesting. I'm hearing this phrase, money stories. What's a money story?
Yeah, so money stories are uh all the things that you tell yourself, right? That are based on like your history, right? So the things that you grew up with, how your parents interacted with money. Did you see your parents arguing about money? Did money become something you avoid because it has like this bad and negative vibe to it because you saw people arguing about money? Did you have access to money when you were a kid? Were you told no all the time? Were you told yes too much? Were you when you got your first job, how were you treated? How did you feel about getting that money and what happened to that money? If you saved money, were you able to save it and keep it how you wanted it? Or did somebody come in and say, hey, you've got that money saved. Can you lend me money? And then you lost the money because they never paid you back. Or, what all these things that happen to you or don't happen for you are little pieces of your money story, right? That you build up over time. Things people told you, like you should not have any debt, no debt at all, like debt is bad. Then you start to feel bad, like you're a bad person because you have debt, you know? You're not a bad person because you have debt. There is some types of debt that are good debt, right? It's just all the things that add up from your history, experiences you had, things people told you, things you've read, things you've heard, all create these stories that you're telling yourself in your head. And it's the same thing with money as it is with other things. Like I'm sure when you work with clients and you talk about the internal obstacles, the things that they're telling themselves, right? Like that's the story you're telling yourself, then that's what's going to come true. And that's kind of the same thing that it is with money. So you have to think about like, is this really reality or is this just something you're telling yourself?
It's a good way to question and reflect on that inner voice that we listen to. Like, is this true? That's a really good way to think about it. There are women in lots of different situations. Starting over in life doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. If you're in a transition, it could be for something exciting, something fun that you've chosen to do. It could be just a natural life progression. Maybe you become an empty nester and that's kind of an in-between phase. Or maybe it is something that's been put upon you. You've come out of a relationship, you've lost everything. So there's a range of things that bring people to the point of needing to start over and rebuild. And in my experience, these are highly capable women. My question is, though, they have that thing that joins them together, that they're all in this situation, they're starting over in one way or another. Why do so many capable women still feel behind with money?
They feel behind because they're listening to all the things that people told them they should do. You should do this, you should do this, you should do this, and they're not doing them. or they're trying to do them and they're not doing as well as they think they should be doing with them. That's why they feel like they're behind. And I want to say, you're talking about people starting over. I've recreated myself more times than I'd like to admit. And I have a YouTube video if you want to go look for it. It's called um, I think it's called Everything About Tenacity is Wrong, because it's about tenacity being something where you just keep trying. But to me, for my life, tenacity means I keep trying something different, right? Now I think I finally found like my space for now, but I've just pivoted so many times and you just keep going. That's tenacity, not hanging on to something that's not working and trying to force it to work. And so I think and I'm drawing that in because it's kind of the same thing with your finances. If you're trying to do something and it's not working, there's something you need to tweak to make it work for you. And a lot of that has to do with your personality and how you interact with money, which is why I bring that human variable into it, because that's the piece that's missing if it's not working. You're telling yourself you should be doing something and you're not doing it. Why aren't you doing it? Why isn't this working for you? How can you make a version of that works for you?
So women, if I want to make sure I've understood correctly, what you see is that often why capable women are behind with money is because they're trying to follow advice that they told that they should be doing in place of this, looking at their situation and realizing something isn't working and then making the necessary adjustments.
Yeah, exactly. So for instance, if you've got a budget and you're trying to follow a budget, right? This is just an example. But you keep failing at the budget, right? And now all you're doing by creating this budget is making yourself feel bad and making yourself feel behind and making yourself feel like you're not doing things right. That's not the point of the budget. The point of making a budget is not to make you feel bad about yourself. So there's something fundamentally wrong with the way you're doing it, or something else that you're doing that needs to be tweaked, right? Because all you're going to do is just keep spiraling downward into feeling like you're bad with money and that you're behind if that's what you're doing.
I like that example, and it makes me think like it's part of this bigger starting over. Even thinking about how we think about our money, we can do something different. We can choose another way. And in part of starting over, you can choose to manage your budget or do whatever you want with your money in a different way. And it can be exciting because it's like you get to choose. You're not trying to force yourself into a mold that other people have created for you.
Yeah. I hear a lot from people, I'm tired of making money and not understanding where it's going. And I've tried to put together a budget, but somehow I still don't end up with the money I thought I had, right? So I hear that a lot. And so this is that spiral where it's like you're trying to do something, you think you're doing the right thing, but it's not working and you don't know why, and then you just feel bad about yourself. You feel behind, you feel like you're doing things wrong. And I think in working with clients, helping them understand the strategy at the same time of like why they're feeling the way they are and how they can make them blend together is the key.
Yeah, and I think it can be difficult because you're trying something that you've been told works. And I wonder if it's the experience that often people don't know what else to try. Like they don't know a different way.
Right. So let's take that example where you've been told something works and it's not working for you. So I have a money personality quiz on my website, but there's 5 money personalities. You might recognize yourself in one of them. There's a security seeker, somebody who likes everything very much set out and planned. They like to know what's happening. There's a saver, and a saver is someone who likes a good deal, watches their money a little bit. Like that doesn't mean that they have money saved. Don't get me wrong, because you can be a saver and not have money saved, but you feel guilty when you spend money because you feel like you should be saving it. Then there's an avoider who just is like, whatever, as long as nothing's bouncing and I'm not in trouble, I'm good. Money's coming in, money's going out, nothing's going wrong. It's not broken. I'm not going to fix it. Then you have a spender, and a spender is not a bad thing. There's no wrong money personality. A spender is somebody who likes experiences. I'm not saying they spend money on themselves necessarily. They could be spending on other people. They could be picking up the tab. They could be taking people out. They could be buying lots of gifts. So a spender just is more free with their money and doesn't feel guilty when they're spending it, but that can get them into trouble later because they've spent more than they thought they would. And then you have a risk taker who is like got big vision, bold moves, like lives for experiences, right? They're like, let's go do this, let's go do that. Like that's the risk taker, right? So when you have all these money personalities, let's talk about that budget, right? So let's say that you come to me and you say, I'm exactly what I said. I'm tired of making money and not understanding where it's going. And I say, okay, let's get a spreadsheet and let's put all the numbers on the spreadsheet, figure out where everything's going, and then we're going to track your expenses and blah, blah, blah. If you're a security seeker, you are going to love that. That is going to work for you. If you are a spender, an avoider, or a risk taker, you are going to hate that, and that is not going to work for you. We need to figure out what's something simple and easy for you to understand that will fix the portion that's not working for you, because you don't want all of that. You don't need all of that. That's way too complicated. So you can see where one strategy that works really great for one person is not going to work for the other people.
Yeah, I like that. And it's nice to know that there are options. And I'm hoping that the listener can think just a bit differently, maybe about the way that they're doing things, especially if they find themselves in a situation where they're needing to rebuild financially. Linda, why does traditional money advice often miss the mark?
It's really that same reason. It's kind of like it all just comes back to it's not, it's advice and it's given to a perfectly rational person, which doesn't exist, right? If you were completely logical, this would work. We would all be able to just be like, this is our money. This is what we have coming in. This is what we have going out. That's all we spend. That's all we do. And it would be perfect. But we're not like that. We react on emotion. Like money is so much emotion. It's so much, impulse buying and the dopamine that we get when we hit add to cart or purchase or, all that. It's all human. And financial planning and budgeting and all of that doesn't take into account the human.
Yes, I saw in some of the information I was gathering about you, and you have a premise that money's not just a math problem; it's a behavioral and an emotional one, and we have touched on aspects of that. What changes need to be made if someone is not managing their money well and their behavior around money perhaps is not getting them where they need to be?
The first thing they need to do is start understanding how they're interacting with money and what they're feeling when they're spending, when they're saving, when they're paying bills. Like notice what's happening. It's a lot of introspection, like getting inside your own head and understanding what's going on. And a lot of times just starting to understand yourself and recognizing patterns helps. Sometimes people need actual therapy, like if they have a lot of ingrained stuff that's you know detrimental to them, then they need, a true financial therapist rather than just coaching or introspection. Like I worked with a client who spent a lot, and we were talking about her growing up, and she said she was always told no because they were very poor. Every time she wanted something, it was no, no, no. So as soon as she was old enough and she got her own job, she just said yes, yes, yes. She said yes to everything. And she couldn't say no because she felt deprived for so long that she just wanted to have everything now. And she was getting to the point where, she had credit and she was using credit and it became a bigger problem. So I was helping her with the numbers part of it, and I referred her out to a therapist. So she was working with a therapist on more of it because there was a lot more ingrained that I couldn't just help with, right? That's something that a licensed, therapist can help with. So sometimes there's both sides of it. But sometimes it's just understanding enough and taking a moment to pause and understand yourself a little bit more that works.
So recognizing patterns in their behavior would be the first, or thoughts or emotions around money would be the first step in terms of how to rebuild on a foundation that is going to get them to where they need to be in the future.
Exactly. So when you're like, you remember how I talked about like I was always worried about having money, like not having enough, scarcity mode, like there's never going to be enough. I noticed that. So now when I start to feel that way, I recognize it and I shut it down. And I, do a little like just reset of my mind, like, okay, it's going to be okay. And I stop that energy, right? That doesn't mean that everything's going perfectly. It just means that I recognize it when it's happening. I also recognize that I emotional purchase sometimes. Like when I'm having a bad day, I'll like, open up, my phone and scroll through stuff. But now instead of adding to my cart, I add to a wish list. And then I have a wish list I can give people if they ever ask me, like, what can I get you for a gift? I'm like, oh, here's my wish list. But I also go in and I look every once in a while and I'll delete things. I'm like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And other times I'll be like, you know what? I really want that. And I'm gonna make a plan to get that instead of just that impulse buy. So there's things that I do now that work around that. And I help clients with that too.
I like that. And I feel that you've given a real practical strategy there that someone can actually take away from this episode. If you are like Linda and you recognize when you're observing your behaviors around money that you impulse buy to deal with stress or for some other reason, create a wish list. So I hope everyone's listening to that. Create a wish list. And it's so interesting because it's kind of like the Amazon cart, right? You put everything in there and you desperately need it, or, you'll save for later list. But when you look back, you're like, I don't know if I really need that.
Exactly.
That kind of it's past. So I like the idea of a wish list because you kind of addressing you have a behavior to do that's going to be the avoidance because we're really trying to avoid something when we go and, stress buy. So you have a
Hmm.
behavior to do that gives you the distraction from whatever it is you're trying to escape, but it's not a behavior that is going to immediately put you into more financial problems. I
Right.
like this a lot. This is a really good tip.
Yeah. And Amazon has wish lists. So you can build your wish list right on Amazon. They have the save for later, but they also have the wish list. And then you can share your wish list with people too. The other thing that I do that's a part of this is my me money method. And the me money method is setting aside an amount of money that you spend on your discretionary items, the things that aren't responsibilities, right? So not your rent, your utilities, your mortgage, whatever, not that stuff, but the stuff you spend on you set aside and you just budget that specific amount. And I hate to use the word budget, but you give yourself a certain amount every paycheck or every month, however you want to do it. You move it to a different section. Like it could be you give yourself cash or it could be a whole separate account. And then that's the only thing that you're allowed to buy things for yourself in, like those impulse purchases. And that way, when it's gone, but you also can save. So if you're not spending it, it builds up. You can open a savings account too. And then you're able to buy things that you want when you're ready. And you make a more intentional choice. So you say, if I buy this now, I say yes to this, I might say no to something later. But if I say no to this now, I might be able to find something more important that I want later. So you make intentional choices, you start buying on like what you really truly value rather than just the rush that you're getting from buying it now. And it's really mind changing, mind blowing when you see like when you just have that one extra little bit of thought about it, what difference it can make.
Hi there, a quick word from today's sponsor, which is me. Charlene Lee Coaching is designed specifically for women like you, women who are navigating life transitions, feeling stuck in the in-between and ready to uncover who they truly are so they can finally move forward. If that's you, I'd love to connect. Head to my website, charlenelee.com, to book a complimentary discovery call with me. Let's talk about what your next chapter could look like. I didn't know that this was a method, but this is something, what you've described is actually something that I do and I've practiced for a long while. And I can't tell you how freeing it is. If I want to blow the lot on one thing, I can blow it. But I mean, there are consequences.
that, for the rest of that period where that money was supposed to last, I'm going to have to say no to some other things. But it takes the guilt away. And it's actually helped me when I look and say, oh, that little pot's gone down quite a bit. I think I'm going to say no to this right now. It really has helped. So if anyone isn't doing that, I love that you're giving some real practical things that people can take away with them. I appreciate that, Linda. I think I want to ask next about what does financial confidence actually look like in life?
To me, financial confidence looks like knowing that you've made the right decision and that you're making good choices. That's what it looks like. Meaning that when you're trying to decide if you should buy something or not buy something, you're able to buy it and not have buyer's remorse and feel guilty about it later, right? That's financial. That's when you don't have that, that's financial confidence. You can make choices. You have intention behind them. You know that if you say yes to this, you're saying no to that. Same thing I already said, but that's confidence.
Linda, because women who find themselves in this situation of pivoting or starting over, they're highly capable women. They've been successful in other areas of their life, and they're not necessarily in a bad place because they're starting over. But in this time of starting over, whether you are in an exciting place and you do have money, but you're pivoting into a new career or starting a new business or moving to a new city, or whether, the situation is a bit more challenging, why is it vital that women address the issue of rebuilding their finances in a more effective way as part of their holistic rebuilding?
Women typically now are living a very long time. We're usually going to be outliving our male partners, right? And a lot of times when we're going through transitions, we have setbacks financially, right? So divorce, loss of job, taking time off to care for parents or children, all of these things create financial setbacks. So we have many more financial setbacks than men typically do. So it's really important for us to understand how to live within our means, how to also at the same time save for an emergency fund, start investing for our future. We need to make sure that all the different versions of our future self are taken care of. And it's hard for people to to connect with that future version of themselves because it's a stranger to them. So I like to look at it like, look at all the people that you once were, right? Who were you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, however old you are, right? Who were you then? And did that person there do justice for you now financially? And then when you look at that and you say, what are the things? Now, it's not to dwell on the things that you did wrong by any means, but it's to say, was my 20-year-old self taking care of my 40-year-old self? Probably not, right? But can my 40-year-old self take care of my 60-year-old self? Probably. Probably can do some more for my future 20 years than I did 20 years prior. And so when you look at that way, you start to see like that you start to understand that that person is not a stranger because you're seeing that your 20-year-old self, your 40-year-old self was a stranger to your 20-year-old self. But now that you're 40, your 20-year-old self isn't a stranger. And the more you think about those different versions, the less the 60-year-old becomes a stranger. I hope that made sense, but it helps people to start saving and understanding that they're serving the future of themselves.
It's profound thinking about it this way because identity evolves and we're discovering who we're becoming in our new season. And some of us, we don't know exactly what the new season entails or looks like. But thinking about it and asking that question, did, the version of myself 10 years ago make decisions that positioned me well in the now version of myself? Such a good way to think about things. And it can be compelling because if your past version didn't do so well, now you're in a position to do better for your future. So I want to ask, what's the hopeful thing about money and rebuilding our financial identities? Where's the hope in all of this? What's to look forward to?
Okay, so a couple of things. When I ask people, about retirement. I don't ask them what they want to do. I ask them how they want to feel. And everyone says some version of carefree. I want to feel content. I want to feel secure. I want to feel carefree. I want to relax. I don't want to be worried about all this stuff. And I think that is what we're all working toward. And even if you can't fully retire, right? Because there are some people that can't, they still want to feel secure and carefree and not hustling still when they're older. They don't want to keep doing the hustle. They might have, a smaller job or be a consultant or do something different, but they don't want to have the jobs that they have now that take all of their time and energy away. So I think we're all working toward that.
And so the hope is that we have an opportunity today, right now, in the decisions we make about our finances, to have a future where we can be carefree or live in the ways where where you're doing things by choice and not out of necessity for money.
Exactly.
That is a lovely hope and something nice to aspire to. I like that it's not necessarily retiring to Florida and not doing anything, but it's living in a carefree way. Thank you, Linda, for sharing so much of your expertise and wisdom with the audience. I appreciate your time and the wisdom that you've shared and the practical things that people can do as they are rebuilding their lives. Linda, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Yeah,
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, I enjoyed that conversation with Linda because I learned so much. My main takeaways were that rebuilding financially is an internal thing as much as it is external, which really aligns with my philosophy on rebuilding in general. We must do the internal work as well as the external. And when it comes to money, we have to address our mindset in order to rebuild in an effective way. Something else I took away was linked to that, and it was about that first step in starting over financially. Linda shared that the first step is awareness and recognizing our behavior patterns around money. Similar to many other areas in life, when we pay attention and recognize what's going on, that's when we position ourselves to make adjustments because we know what needs to be adjusted. As we journey together looking at the art of starting over or pivoting in life, I hope this episode has given you something that you can use now or in the future when it comes to your finances, so that your future you will look back and thank your present you for making decisions that were beneficial and positioned you to live that carefree life that Linda spoke about. I took Linda's quiz on lindagriz.com to find out my own money personality, and it really did help me to better understand my money identity. So if you need clarity about your own money identity, go on and head over there. I'll leave a link in the description.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I look forward to spending some time with you next week.